With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you.
As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor, and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and as we speak, the House of Representatives is preparing to vote on the Fiscal Responsibility Act. You may be listening to this after the vote has taken place, and I do anticipate that that will go through. We could be surprised because some of the Republicans, most notably Corey Mills out of Florida, Chip Roy out of Texas, Bob Good out of Virginia, are suggesting that they are totally opposed. And so whether or not they actually get to that threshold, that they will get below what Kevin McCarthy needs to actually pass this bill, remains to be seen. But there could be some Democrat support as well. And I do anticipate that there will be. I don't think that this will be a vote just along party lines because this has really been a deal that was negotiated between Speaker McCarthy and Joe Biden and the Democrats, including Chuck Schumer, and some of the Democrat leadership, as well as the Republican leadership. So there will probably be more bipartisan support than just the narrow majority if this was along party lines. So the question for Republicans and especially conservatives is this really a good deal? Or is this Speaker McCarthy just being, kind of within the swamp and being more of a swamp creature that's compromising or caving to the Democrats by negotiating this deal? Well, Trish Regan, who is a phenomenal economist, I really respect her for her perspectives on everything dealing with the Fiscal Responsibility Act, as well as just her background in economics, is going to join me coming up next. And I really want you to hear from her. But to kind of set the stage for this and this whole conversation, we have to be Republicans and conservatives that live in reality. And so the reality is we have a very slim majority in the House. We don't control the Senate. We don't control the White House. This is why voting matters and why down ticket matters as well. Everyone is focused, and rightly so, on the upcoming 2024 presidential election. But we need to always be concerned about down ticket races as well. This is why a lot of people, myself included, frankly, were a little bit frustrated with how the last few election cycles have gone, and that there really wasn't this emphasis on getting Republicans elected, regardless of whether Mitch McConnell or Karl Rove or Donald Trump, for that matter, liked them, endorsed them, or didn't. the key is that we at least win those seats so that we can continue to build the momentum. So, the only exception for me personally to that is a Republican who's running as a Republican that, really isn't standing for anything Republican principles. Majorities matter, but I was not, for example, going to vote in my then home state of Colorado for the Republican who was running and basically saying, that he was very much pro-choice. Like, I'm going to draw the line there. And I openly and publicly said that. But, barring something that's just clearly you are a Republican in name only, and you're not going to take the overall values of conservatism to your office, then I'm going to generally support the most conservative candidate. And in that case, I actually did support the most conservative candidate, and I'm still going to vote in every single election that I'm eligible, right? So that now is my new home state of Florida. So as we look, though, broadly and a 30,000-foot perspective of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, I genuinely think, and I believe that Trish Regan is going to agree with me on this, that this was the best deal that Kevin McCarthy could negotiate given these particular circumstances. Now, I understand the objection from, all of the Republicans saying, well, if the tables were turned and this is the Democrats, this is, still Speaker Pelosi with a Trump administration, and a Senate that's controlled by Mitch McConnell, then they would hold the line and they would require more concessions from Republicans. Why don't we do that? Well, I think for a couple of reasons, namely, because the Democrats don't care about tearing down America. Republicans actually do. So we are going into negotiations with kind of that tip of our hand that we are not ever going to be okay with simply defaulting on our national debt. That's just not an option. We're not going to default. And I think the Democrats know that. And so they're coming in with a little bit of an upward hand by saying, hey, if we hold the line, we know that eventually we're going to have to get to a negotiated compromise. Where if Kevin McCarthy, for example, had held the line, I don't know that even some of the Republicans in his conference would have been okay with that. I mean, he's not dealing with a Republican majority that is, fully in lockstep behind a conservative or an America First agenda. There are, kind of a spectrum of Republicans that he's having to lead. And that's a very difficult position, much more than a Speaker Pelosi who is running a Democrat party that outside of maybe, one or two issues with the squad and, some of those things, Democrats basically vote for whatever Democrat leadership says that their priorities must be. Republicans don't do that. So I think that the main reason here for this genuinely being the best deal that Speaker McCarthy could make is because of the very slim majority of Republicans, and also the fact that he's dealing with Democrats in the White House and also Democrats in the Senate, and and really some Republicans that aren't necessarily along with the fuller conservative agenda, like people who I genuinely respect, like Representatives Bob Good, Corey Mills, Chip Roy, Matt Gaetz, and others who wanted to see a better package. I also think that this is a first step for Kevin McCarthy and for the Republicans to then say, okay, this is kind of a baseline, and then we'll continue to build momentum from there. And hopefully 2024 will see expanded Republican majorities and hopefully a Republican majority in the Senate and an expanded majority in Congress. And I really do think that that is largely going to depend on who is our top ticket Republican. And if you missed my conversation with my good friend Josh Hammer on his Newsweek podcast, I'd really encourage all of you to listen to that. It was last Thursday. You can find that at the Josh Hammer Show. And we were talking about kind of the Trump versus DeSantis and some thoughts on that and who is the best person who really will go out and advocate and campaign for everyone down ticket. And I firmly believe that Governor DeSantis has a phenomenal track record in the state of Florida for doing exactly that and expanding by a large margin the Republican majority in Florida. He now has a super majority, and that's the reason that he's gotten so much great conservative legislation passed in the state of Florida. I mean, a lot of people are, saying, oh, hey, well, that's not the executive branch. All he's doing is signing legislation he agrees with. It's really the state legislature. Well, yeah, but go back and look at the composition of that, and even the Republicans that they registered that his office, has been really trying to promote, and how they expanded the supermajority, and that was because of his leadership. I actually interviewed the Florida House Speaker on my radio show. You can find that at afr.net. It's Jenna Ellis in the Morning. And I interviewed the day after he announced for president, the Speaker of the House in Florida, and asked him about Governor DeSantis's leadership and how that would translate to the executive branch in Washington, D.C. And I'd encourage you to listen to that as well. And, obviously, President Trump has a track record as well. And I think we all need to talk about that, fair and balanced and honestly, the great things and, some of the things that we can critique. So getting back, though, to the Fiscal Responsibility Act, I think that there's kind of a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking in a sense, or armchair quarterbacking, whatever, sports analogy you want to use, that it's very easy to simply criticize and say, I want more as a conservative. Well, yeah, but are you having to actually deal with, and could you pull off a better negotiation than what Speaker McCarthy has been able to accomplish? And I think genuinely the answer to that is probably no. And so I think he has been better than I anticipated as a speaker. I don't think he has thrown the conservative agenda under the bus by any means. And we all know that we are in a debt crisis in America, that all of this is not sustainable. And I don't think that Kevin McCarthy would disagree with that. And I don't think that he thinks that that this Fiscal Responsibility Act is going to solve all of the problems. What I see him saying publicly is that this is a first step to continue to negotiate and hopefully, again, with the expanded majorities, continue to address a lot of these issues. And there's kind of a few top level points that I'm not really seeing the nuts and bolts of people talking about that I think are really important to highlight. Like, for example, this Fiscal Responsibility Act would claw back tens of billions in unspent COVID funds. That's really important. It would rein in executive overreach and enact into law the first ever statutory administrative pay-go to hold President Biden accountable for the full cost of executive rules and regulations, which should save taxpayers trillions of dollars. This was an executive order that was great from the Trump administration, but an executive order can be rescinded by a future administration, which is exactly what happened with Biden. And so the fact that this is now being put into legislation just further cements that as a policy that will be a lot harder to rescind. So some of these things and some of these concessions that Speaker McCarthy was actually able to get under these circumstances, I think are really, really great. Would restart the student loan repayments, and also would slash funding for Biden's new IRS agents. So this is going to nix the total fiscal year 2023 staffing funding request for the new IRS agents. And my understanding as well is even the appropriation for the current 87,000 IRS agents, that funding can then, after the Fiscal Responsibility Act, be reappropriated. Instead of funding the IRS agents, can be reappropriated to fund things like more border security agents. And I think that would be a great appropriation. Congress, in my opinion, has largely ceded its power of the purse, either not using it effectively or just giving it over to whatever the executive wants, unless your name is Donald Trump. And in a way that the founders intended to give Congress the power of the purse to rein in the executive and to make sure that you have to get enough votes from both houses in order to spend money. Spending money and coining money, all of this is the responsibility of Congress in Article 1, Section 8. This isn't something that can just be ceded or should be ceded to the executive branch under the framework of our Constitution. So bottom line here, did we solve everything? And is this absolutely the best, most idealistic version of a Fiscal Responsibility Act that conservatives want? Well, no. But is this a good step? And is this the best that, and has a lot of things embedded in it. I mean, the first 55 pages are actually recensions in a 99-page act. I mean, go look at it and go read it for yourself and scan through and actually see what's contained in it. Don't just take, the mainstream media's top level talking points and base your opinion on whether you personally like Kevin McCarthy as the speaker or not, or whether you're just kind of taking, someone else's word for it on whether or not you like Speaker McCarthy. I personally think he's done a great job with this. I do anticipate that it will pass, but we are going to hear from Trish Regan coming up right after this.
With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to your to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you.
Welcome back. And if you are just joining us, the other big story, and I think really the biggest in the country today, beyond the DeSantis versus Trump stuff, is all about the Fiscal Responsibility Act. And the GOP largely, it seems like, is just complaining about this and saying, that Kevin McCarthy caved and Speaker McCarthy needs to have a motion to vacate the chair, and are kind of, up in arms about this. But I'm a little bit more of a realist here. And I think that my good friend Trish Regan, who is the host of the Trish Regan Show on the Salem Podcast Network, where my show, the Jenna Ellis Show, is also on. I think that Trish is also a little bit more of a realist, and she is definitely a lot more well-versed in economics and this entire subject matter than me. So I'm very glad that she joins me this morning to break this down. So good morning, Trish.
Good morning, Jenna. It's great to talk to you.
Yeah, great to talk with you too. And I always love listening to your commentary on topics like this, because it really helps people like me understand, kind of what is actually part of this bill, why, in my view, at least, Kevin McCarthy didn't cave as much as, some people would suggest. So what's your opinion overall on the Fiscal Responsibility Act and how we as conservatives should be looking at this?
Okay, so full disclosure, a lot of people may not like what I'm going to say. Full disclosure. But I am a realist like you, Jen. I mean, you just mentioned that. And I think right now it is very important for the sake of our nation's economy that we look at this as a glass half full. And I'm thrilled with what he was able to accomplish. There are a lot of good things in there. But most importantly, Jenna, default is not an option. Okay? Like, it's just not an option. And anyone who can get out there and grandstand and say, we didn't get this, we didn't get that. Let's just keep in mind, let's just remember, it's all about compromise. This is called a negotiation. And the time to work on bringing our insane levels of spending, because they are insane, down, that's for later. You don't do that when you're up at the 11th hour and there's talk of not having enough money to run the government and pay possibly, notes that are due in June or July not getting paid. I just want to say, Jenna, I feel passionately about this. The reason the United States enjoys so many privileges that it has is why? Oh, we pay our bills. I started my career actually at Goldman Sachs years ago trading sovereign debt in emerging market countries, specifically banana republics, Venezuela, Argentina, Mexico, Brazil, you name it. And there was a consistency that you always saw there. I mean, how many times did we have to go and restructure Argentina because Argentina didn't pay its bills? Well, we have a lot of reasons, Jenna, for sounding and being like a banana republic right now. The last thing we can possibly afford is to make financial mistakes that will literally ruin us forever. Like, I can't be dramatic enough about that. All of the things that we enjoy, our standard of living, they all come from the fact that we've got liquid, outstanding capital markets, which are based on the creditworthiness of the United States of America. We are like literally the gold standard. We cannot risk that. And I'm really disgusted, I'm just going to tell you frankly, with both sides for trying to make this a political game. And you and I have talked before. I'm not that political. I'm just sort of what's best for the economy, what's best for national security. I mean, I'm very policy driven, and I'm willing to call out either side when they're wrong. And Republicans that are attacking this, they are wrong. Democrats that are attacking this, they are wrong.
And Trish Regan, I really appreciate this, very non-political approach, because I think that a lot of the hangover hatred maybe from the war of getting Speaker McCarthy actually elected to speakership is kind of spilling over into this as well, because where I see Speaker McCarthy negotiating this and a lot of people saying that, oh, this was just the 11th hour. Well, he's been negotiating this since, since at least February. I mean, this isn't just, he kind of ignored it and came in last minute. He was on record talking with the president and Chuck Schumer and all of them months ago. And so, my view of his approach to this was very common sense, practical, and what he could actually get accomplished, not kind of this, well, in an alternate reality or in the best of all possible worlds. Well, yeah, the best of all possible worlds would be that America in Congress looks like Florida, right? Where we have a great governor, we have a super majority in both houses. We can kind of do, the most conservative thing. But that's not true for the federal government. And so from a practical standpoint, then, how do you think people should be looking at what Kevin McCarthy accomplished, and why is this actually a good deal?
So it's so easy to take shots, right? And that's what just angers me about this whole thing, because Republicans, you know what, like at some point, guys, you just got to get your act together for the sake of the country, for the sake of your capital markets. How many people do I know on Wall Street telling me they don't have the clarity that they need? Our capital markets, like, literally are everything. And if you can't borrow money right now to be in these markets because everything's so messed up, don't forget, you'd be looking at more regional bank closures and all kinds of problems because they hold this paper on their books. Well, then you get a huge problem. But these people don't understand that. All they want to do is take shots at McCarthy because it's easy. Politically, it's expedient. I get it. Nobody's happy with $30.4 trillion in debt, least of all me, Jenna. I mean, I really don't like it. But do you want to burn the house down? No. You want to actually come up with solutions. He did a very good job coming up with solutions. I'm very pleased, for example, that, it turns out you're going to have to pay your student loans back in 3 months. There are plenty of examples there where he was successful. And instead of being able to take a victory lap and say, let's move this country forward because it is what we are here to do, the adults in the room need to make sure this happens. You get a bunch of you just get a bunch of political nonsense. I was disappointed in DeSantis as well. He was using this as a political chip. I know that Donald Trump has said, fine, default. Wrong. It's not okay for anyone to be talking about this in such a cavalier way. It's kind of like, I mean, if I were to even describe it, and I try not to be Chicken Little, because I know they're going to get a deal done. Nobody wants to be the one to, actually have the U.S. default on its debt for the first time in history. Don't forget, it was Alexander Hamilton who said, we must pay our debts. That will be the distinguishing factor for us historically forever. So you don't want to be the guy or the party for which this goes really badly, and I don't think we will risk that. But I resent that they're all taking this as an opportunity, whether it be AOC or whether it be Republicans that just don't like Kevin McCarthy. Get over it, guys. You've got to grow up. You've got to do task at hand what we sent you there to do. And hey, you want to bring the Tea Party back, go for it. I'd be all for people who would actually be looking at this in a more prudent way. But let's come together, for goodness sakes, for the sake of the country, when we need to do that. I'm passionate about it, and I'm very disturbed and very angry that we can get this broken, because it bothers me that people will do this for their own political gain. It's a political chip. They see an opportunity. Let's go after Kevin McCarthy, who, by the way, is doing his job. He's doing what we sent him there to do. And I'm not necessarily a McCarthy fan.
Right. And I'm talking with Trish Regan, who's host of the Trish Regan Show on the Salem Podcast Network. And, everything that you're saying, Trish, makes sense. And I can imagine that there are listeners out there that are going, well, wait a minute, this isn't what I'm hearing on, my favorite networks and, and some of the rhetoric that's coming from, the political sides. But I think what you're saying makes sense. And did we lose Trish potentially there? Well, we'll try to get her back. But what she's saying is it makes a lot of sense from the standpoint that you can't just be Republican and Democrat and so completely entrenched in the absolute 100% best view of everything Republican or Democrat, depending on which side of the fence you're on, that you can't compromise and ever work across the aisle, and you ever, say, okay, we're going to actually make these negotiations and these deals. Compromise, when you're talking about a standard of morality or truth, yeah, you don't compromise on those things, but compromise is not inherently a bad word or a bad thing all of the time. Sometimes it is necessitated, and that is the art of negotiation, and you compromise on things where there is give and take. And so, and I'm told that Trish is back. And Trish, this is where I think a lot of people who initially didn't like Speaker McCarthy and were very opposed to his speakerships are using this as a way to simply say, well, we need to use this as a shiny object to just say, well, let's get rid of him as speaker, when I can't really see a way that he could have negotiated this genuinely better given the hand that he was dealt. And this set us up well, I think, not only not to default on our debt, which, as you said, is just not an option, but to then move forward and actually have a baseline to negotiate further, especially because we really don't know what 2024 and the presidential election and the composition of Congress is really going to look like.
Look, I think he should be doing a victory lap. I really do. And it's just so discouraging to me that his own party is so disjointed and so craving some kind of populist support. It's very easy to get out there on your soapbox and say, this is unacceptable because we still have crazy amounts of debt and we're heading towards bankruptcy, which, by the way, yes, we are. Actually, you might even argue that we're already bankrupt. The fiscal health of the country is not ideal. But you kind of need to, at some point, recognize the hand that you're dealt and ensure that you don't have a complete catastrophe. And so this is what he did, and I'm impressed by it. The other thing I would say, Jenna, and it's my frustration in general with politics, because you got to be able to get deals done, right? You got to be able to negotiate. And he did have a hard time only because the president of the United States was making it very clear from the get-go that he only wanted a clean debt ceiling and he wasn't going to do anything, so he dug in his heels early on. That was Joe Biden's negotiating technique. That is not how you negotiate. And so I give McCarthy a ton of credit for being able to work through that. He did negotiate, and this is what adults do. It's why I tend to like people. I mean, you think about Glenn Youngkin is not running this time around, but he'd be a great candidate in the future. Somebody who actually has experience negotiating deals. He came from Carlisle. He understands economics. He understands the social stuff, obviously, clearly in Virginia as well. But we need more people. Vivek Ramaswamy, I mean, the guy built two many $100 million biotech companies. He understands it's not a zero-sum game. You've got to come to the table willing to negotiate. You give some, you lose some, and hopefully you do the best thing for the United States of America and the American people. And for anybody to sit there and just poke fingers at what McCarthy's doing shows to me how either ill-informed they are, right, that they don't understand this. I doubt it. I think they do understand that. And it also shows how, egotistically, narcissistic, politically driven they really are. I mean, they're like, wait, can I pick up a few more? I suspect, I mean, Jenna, between us, there's probably a lot of Trump holdouts within sort of the base of the party that are willing to kind of flirt with disaster. Maybe they don't understand exactly how bad it would be. I know they don't like Kevin McCarthy for a whole slew of reasons, but you know what? I don't either. But credit where credit is due. The guy is doing his job, and we need that. We need politicians in Washington who can actually do the job.
Mm-hmm. Well, really well said, Trish. And I think that, it's very easy to go out and, do the media hits and say, oh, this should have been done better. But that's kind of armchair quarterbacking and, watching this unfold instead of genuinely being there in the trenches. And I think that there are some, people like Chip Roy and Bob Good, who are people that I really respect, who are objecting this, and they are in the trenches. And I think that some of their commentary, back and forth is legitimate, and we should look at that. But I'm talking about kind of the broader, Republican Party, that nothing is ever good enough, right? For a lot of people who sit back and say, okay, well, this needs to be totally perfect. Like, for example, people who even complain about heartbeat bills, who are saying, well, no, it has to be, no, absolutely no abortions from the moment of conception. Well, yes, in a totally ideal world, I absolutely agree with you. But the practical reality is that if we are saving babies from the moment of heartbeat forward, I'm going to take that as a huge win over saying, well, it's just not good enough. And I think that as Christians and as conservatives, we need to look at the practical reality, and we need to also look at making some good steps toward a future goal. And that starts also with electing the right people. So Trish Regan, you can find her at the Trish Regan Show on the Salem Podcast Network. As always, if you'd like to write in and comment, Jenna at afr.net. Always appreciate hearing from you, and we will be back with more tomorrow right here on Jenna Ellis in the Morning.
Have you ever picked up a towel set because it felt so soft in the store, but then when you leave and you go to use it, it's not really that absorbent? It's basically a towel that is leaving you out to dry. That's why MyPillow has developed the MyPillow towels that actually work. I know, it's totally mind-blowing. Towels that actually dry you. Their 6-piece towel set includes 2 bath towels, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths. They come in a variety of colors. I have the sage green and the white. I love them. And right now you can receive a 6-piece set for only $39.98 with promo code Jenna. That's JENNA. So go to mypillow.com right now and click on the radio listeners special. MyPillow products come with a 10-year warranty and have a 60-day money-back guarantee. So to receive this amazing offer on the 6-piece towel set of MyPillow towels, just go to mypillow.com, click on the radio listener special, and enter promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, or call 1-800-564-8475. That's mypillow.com, promo code Jenna.